Councilmember Nestante will be following the same practice as yesterday. Very good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Excellent. Oh, I think I hear Jan, so. Okay, let's roll.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you for joining us again for day 2 of the budget study session. Well, of course not. Please remember, we do have spots for questions, but feel free to stop me if you need to. And if you need a comfort break, just let me know. Today, our objectives are to get through the follow-up items from yesterday, look at the capital projects operations budgets, the 5-year CIP plan. We're going to look at the 23-24 capital projects priorities, public works priorities, and then if time permits, we kind of would like to jump into development service operations budgets and finish with public works ops budgets today.
Go for it.
Excellent. So our first follow-up from yesterday, Mayor Kelly had asked about the difference between committed and assigned fund balance. And so that's what these breakdowns are here for you. Committed are self-imposed city council set restrictions, and assigned are restrictions that the city manager is assigned by the city council, delegated by the city council. And then ultimately at the end, if there is any balance left, that's your unassigned fund balance that can be used for projects or programs or what the city council sees fit. So I wanted to update you on that. We did send out the policy to each of you last night. Just want to make sure you got it. You're very welcome. On this page, what we wanted to talk about is the difference between what was presented to you yesterday as proposed for the policy thresholds versus what is actually in the policy, and kind of explain the method of how we got there. What precipitated looking at this was a few things. One, the CIP list and how extensive it was, and the items that had been continuously carried over year after year, and where we were at and what that meant for the reserve. The second thing was we had the same sort of effect with our facilities maintenance. When we did the reserve study, what they indicated was that over the course of 5 years, we would have $50 million of maintenance expenditures. And what we recognized is over those 5 years, we actually only spent $8 million. And so we were carrying a reserve for facilities of about $40 million that really seemed unaccomplishable. And given the fact that we only did 8 million over 5 years, so we were trying to make a realistic estimation of what that should actually be and create some flexibility to get work done. The other thing that precipitated this in truth was the whole fire discussion and what that does to the bottom line. And so creating flexibility to achieve the city council's goals and priorities, get these CIP projects done and the facilities done, was actually our objective in looking at this. And so when you look at this table, what we focused on were the top 4. General fund, operating reserve, and emergency reserve. That was where we talked about looking at GFOA and what their best practices was, what are stated as. And they're saying a minimum threshold of 16.7 of either operating reserve or emergency reserve. The next step I took personally was researching what large cities are doing currently and what that looks like, assuming that they would be more sophisticated and what they were doing. And the majority of them were using the 16.7 guideline. What was fascinating to me is each of them had reports recently post-pandemic saying that they were working their way back to the 16.7% threshold, and that terrified me. But moving on from there, what gave me a little bit of comfort is that we maintain both of those. So essentially we have a 33% reserve. And I know I mentioned yesterday, personally, what I've always looked at and been told is 50% is the minimum threshold you want to hold. So we were working our way back there, and it felt comfortable to me. As far as the facilities maintenance reserve, again, what we looked at was the number of projects that were not being accomplished and what seemed realistic. And at the end of the study, what it said was, if we were accomplishing the tasks that they thought we should annually, there should be this bottom line of about $20 to $18 million. And so to back into that, the $18 million was the equivalent of 30% of the annual reserve that they were requiring of us. And that's where we came up with that $18 million number moving forward. That seemed a little more in line with what we could accomplish, given we had only done 8 million, and now that we're ramping up with projects in the future. With the CIP reserve, it has that same sort of effect. We've had all these projects. When you look at, we'll get to the summary soon. When you look at that, over 5 years, we have about $200 million in projects that we're saying we're going to get done. And we have to reserve 20% of that $200 million. That's a big number. It's another $40 million number. And are we better served reserving it or actually using it to accomplish those projects so that it reduces our reserve? And so that's what we were looking at on those 4 items. The only other one that we looked at was the other fund stability reserve. And what that is for transfers out that the general fund makes to like fire and the aquatic center and any other fund. What we realized there is it was being doubly counted. So it was a duplication. It was included in the general fund operating reserve. And so I removed it from the operating reserve and then just applied the same 16.7 measure to that number as well. And so when we get to the next page, so this is the picture of the reserve as approved based on policy. When you add back in the 25% of operating reserve, the 20% of emergency reserve, and the facility and CIP reserves, what that does is it creates a nice flow going out as far as what our total reserve required is, but it reduces that unassigned fund balance. So that flexibility is completely gone in the first year. It doesn't change the fact that operations still has an issue at the end of the day, but it does create a much quicker way to not be able to fund projects. Oh, and I'm so sorry. I didn't mention what we did change on this, what we did add to this was with Gina's mention of Desert Surf, we reallocated the $20 million bond funds to the North Sphere Community Park and the North Sphere Regional Park. So a portion of each of those is covered by that $20 million. And so it reduced that obligation that potentially could be on the general fund. So then this is the same picture with those adjusted amounts, and it just creates that flexibility at the bottom of the unassigned fund balance. Whether council decides to use those amounts for those projects or not is entirely up to them, but that was the gap that we were trying to establish so that there would be that flexibility over the next 5 years. Again, it doesn't change the operations, but that was kind of the goal we were looking at.
Thank you for all of this. And of course, today is not a time for decision, but as you review our work from these 2 days, I, for one, want to encourage you not to see the choice on this as all or nothing. You know, either keep the pre-existing policy without change or change it entirely as suggested, because the case in regard to facilities and CIP is more clear to me as one council member than the case in regard to the emergency reserve. You've got a track record now as to how much is actually needed for the operating reserve to accommodate cash flow. So you can make that case to us that the GFOA standard is sufficient in our circumstances. But the emergency reserve, and I would suggest that it's different, has a distinct purpose from the liability reserve. I really see the emergency reserve as pandemic, earthquake, huge impact on operations. And that's the proposed change that's most troublesome to me. And as you reassess this and prepare materials for formal action, I think it would be good for us to see the GFOA supporting information. Others?
I concur, Madam Mayor, on the policy that was provided. Thank you, staff, for issuing that. On, let's see, page 4 of 7, the footnote at the very bottom of the page, it states, after the financial crisis in 2008, the fluctuation in the city's revenue was approximately 20% of the 2007 and 8 budget, or $11 million, et cetera. Won't read everything to you, but it says it took approximately 8 years to reestablish the revenue base to pre-2008 levels. So my concern is we shouldn't see that the pandemic is completely over. We need to be a little bit more conservative, especially as we know that there are economic hardships ahead.
You mentioned during the well, what you were just talking about, sorry, and talking about reallocating $20 million from Desert Surf over to the North Sphere Regional Park. And I'm seeing here in the unfunded requests, still $40 million estimated with bonds to pay for the park. Does that mean we're going to spend 60 million on the North Sphere, or does that number need to be readjusted?
No, I'm so sorry. So on the left side, you're going to see what the actual cost is, the 10 million and the 30 million for those two parks. If you go all the way to the right, I don't know if you're on the blue one. It's only 10 million that's allocated to the general fund. The rest of it would be coming out of bonds.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, there are no other questions. I'll move on to the next follow-up item. This is related to the TOT question on actuals from 2022. In March of last year, we pulled in about $3.14 million. I had staff collect the numbers. They were due April 30th, so we're still getting checks in today. But we have about 3.4 million for March so far. What I did with my projections to get to the 21 million for next year was I actually used actuals from 2022 for March through June. So we are right in line with them. I feel a little bit comfortable seeing that. So if there are no questions, I'll move on. So there was also the question about unfunded projects and improvements. The ones that we are aware of are the North Sphere Regional Park, the North Sphere Community Park, Palm Desert Library, citywide undergrounding. Given the presentation that we had yesterday, possibly a housing authority capital improvement support, the fire station renovations, in the event the assessments exceed the estimate that we have from a couple years ago, that potentially is on board. And then also phase 2 and 3 of the development services office space renovations. Those are the ones that I'm aware of right now. When we talk about facilities and the list that we have from the reserve study, staff's still going through that to determine what actually has been done or needs to be done that isn't already concluded in budget. So once we have that, we'll provide that. Okay. Are there any other questions on that? Okay. Then we will go ahead and jump into capital projects, and I will hand it over to Jess Culpepper.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. My name is Jess Culpepper, Director of Capital Projects. I'm going to be running through the Capital Projects Department budget with you. We'll jump right into the major initiatives for fiscal year 23-24. One, implement new project management processes and software to more effectively track and execute projects. Two, utilize newly added internal and contract staff resources to more efficiently support and complete various capital projects. And three, continue to focus significant department resources on completing and progressing priority capital projects, which we'll review in a little bit more detail in an upcoming slide. Cost containment measures. We're continually searching for grant opportunities, leveraging grant and non-general fund funding sources, most notably with HSIP funds or Highway Safety Improvement Program funds, ATP, SB 821 funds, and funding sources of that nature. Here's a snapshot of the capital projects budget. We have 10 full-time positions, 2 of which are vacant currently. As Veronica mentioned yesterday, we are a new department. This will be our first full fiscal year, this upcoming year. And so with that, salaries for most positions and really the budget in general were previously included in the Public Works Administration budget in prior years.
So just really quickly to add, I did add the positions on each of the pages and I will send them out to you guys as soon as we're done. So this is the 5-year CIP summary. You have the detail in your packet on page 83. The summary shows the various breakdowns of the different types of projects we're anticipating over the next 5 years. As you can see in 23-24, the lion's share is facilities as far as having the biggest square there on the graph. And they are varied throughout the 5 years. As I mentioned earlier, the total over the 5 years with the carryover is about $200 million.
And as mentioned previously, this is our priority projects list that we wanted to break down a little bit more. We anticipate the projects listed will be completed or have significant progress this upcoming fiscal year. These are related to some of our major and significant drainage projects related, also projects related ATP and some of our main structural projects. Some of those projects include the Haystack Channel Rehabilitation, Section 29 Regional Detention Basin Expansion, PD Link, CV Link enhancements, Haystack Road traffic calming improvements, which will be phase 2, walk and roll, Development Services Office space improvements, which is the lobby project, and the building of Fire Station 102.
So now we'll ask Randy to come up and give, or is Martine? I'm sorry, Martine's giving the presentation on Public Works.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'd like to also run through the 23-24 fiscal year Public Works priority list. You have here on this chart all of the projects that we will be endeavoring, starting with the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Project. This is a program that we will be studying the city in 3 different categories or 3 different locations to assess what improvements can be done to traffic calming and safety. And we're currently in the process of reinserting some community meetings to get more feedback so that we can make informed decisions. The Aquatic Center, as we mentioned before, has some deferred maintenance that we will be tackling in the next fiscal year and in other fiscal years beyond that. We mentioned the 2 parks in the north part of the city, the Community Park and Regional Park, that are currently under conceptual designs. Palma Village improvements will include a significant amount of new repurpose amenities and cleaning up some amenities to make the park more viable for the community. And that's Palma Village. It's just south of us here at San Pablo and near the Jocelyn Community Center. Of course, we're going to be updating our Civic Center Dog Park with some improvements. The big major push next year will also be the Parkview building, which we will be assessing its condition, establishing a game plan for future years and renovating of infrastructure. but the big portion of it will include a facade enhancement by which we will evaluate and bring that building up to today's current standards, both aesthetically and actually from a functional standpoint. The Artisan Center at the Galen, we have some projects there planned primarily to look at the older systems, including the roof, air conditioning systems, and other and repainting the facility as well. The facilities maintenance master plan, that's something that we've started this year. We'll assessing all of our facilities comprehensively, again, establishing that larger view of renovating and updating our facilities as needed. The corporation yard, there's some deferred maintenance there and our break room, restrooms, and other amenities that will improve security and access for that facility. And of course, Fire Station 67, again, some minor deferred maintenance that we'll be tackling to make sure that, excuse me. To make sure that that facility is up to speed with the improvements that are needed, some primarily to bathrooms, flooring, and also to some ADA improvements. And as you see there, you'll have the breakdowns for each of the costs per fiscal year. And I am available to answer any questions.
Just real quick, what are the dog park improvements that are proposed? We spent some time there. I'm just curious what to look forward to.
I'm going to ask Randy to come up and give you some more detail on that. He's got the full picture.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, City Council members. So the dog park improvements, there are a couple things. The photometrics of the lights, it's terrible lighting out there. Some of the light standards out there are rusting. So we want to go in there and redo all the lighting, and also the irrigation is substandard. It creates a lot of mud issues and whatnot. We've been hearing a lot of those. We've heard it several times. So we're hoping to address all those issues in this one project.
Randy, before you go, are the misters currently working?
Yes, they are.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I see the progress that's going on and the appreciation of the detail, are these listed in order of priority or project completion, or are they arbitrary? And if not, how can we get a list of what you've identified in terms of priority?
These are not listed in order of from top to bottom in priority. These are priorities that we'll be tackling simultaneously for the fiscal year. But if the council would like us to look at that exercise, we can.
In other words, it's a horizontal list. They're all top priority.
Yeah, one of the things you'll see with both the 23-24 CIP and Public Works facilities lists are we've really been stressing projects and work plans that can be completed. Because when they're not, that we're carrying sometimes duplicative fund balances in the general fund for them. So we basically have been working with our directors to say, if you can't get it completed, design it one year and construct the next, but let's not hold fund balance reserves there, because we're making decisions based on other policy discussions, based on you being able to get things done. So what you're seeing are work plans they believe that they can deliver to you.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sorry, I missed your
That's okay.
hand.
On the aquatic center, when we had the presentation, it was also mentioned perhaps adding different types of slides and amenities to attract more people and make it more financially solvent. I don't believe these numbers would reflect any of it. Will we at some point have another study session then on the aquatic center itself?
The answer is yes. We had that discussion with Park and Rec this morning regarding potentially adding some more amenities out there. What we asked them for is a few months to continue our fee discussion with the council to get you comfortable with the resident, non-resident fee structures. We're also working on a grant program for folks that might not have the ability to pay, trying to get you comfortable there. Once we have that information and project out what the fees look like and get caught up on the deferred maintenance side, we'll be able to do a little bit better job for you in terms of if we add an amenity, what happens to the reserves. But right now, it would be a guess. We need a year of behavior. What happens when we start increasing fees there because at some point we're going to hit a point of diminishing returns. And that's the discussion that we're having right now. We'll get that plan in place, get you comfortable with it, get caught up on the deferred maintenance. And we've also got to finalize the PDAC management contract because it looks like it's going to increase our subsidy into the PDAC next year. Once we get that finalized, then once we have those fixed points, we can do that analysis for you on adding additional amenities, whether you feel it makes sense or not, depending on how much people are going to be willing to pay to enter into PDAC.
Thank you, Todd.
Me too. I wanted to mention, I know we talk about adding amenities, which also then adds on to operations and maintenance. And one of the issues, and it was stated during the presentation, is the size, the depth of the pool. Do you characterize that as deferred maintenance, or how do we address that issue?
Well, that's been interesting. We actually have put that to the side and have not put any budget money towards it right now. Once we had the discussion with the YMCA and basically I asked them to increase the salaries to see if that wouldn't help with the recruiting. They have essentially doubled their staff in the last 2 months and been able to get back. So I'm not hearing from them that the depth of the pool is an issue so much anymore now that they are paying people enough to attract their interest in the job. And they've had a number of people, I think it was 20 or 24 folks getting certified recently.
Okay.
So we've put that issue to the side and we're focusing on other issues such as rehabbing the bathrooms, chiller units, those sorts of things.
And I agree with all of that. I know we need to make sure that it's, we invest in our investment. I just want to make sure, though, when we look at the depth of the pool and those issues, that we also pay attention to what does it cost in water, in the chemicals, in the maintenance with, I think it's great now we have staff, and I know that was critical that we address that issue. I just want to make sure we're not just kind of polishing something up that is going to later on be a problem.
Great. We got through that really quickly. So we will jump ahead to slide 105, please, Anthony.
And I'll just affirm the reason this is going quickly is that staff has done such a good job of giving us appetizers in recent months. So it's easier for us to digest.
So we will go ahead and hand it off to Richard Canoni on Development Services.
Good afternoon, Mayor Council. How are you? Richard Canoni, Director of Development Services. What I'd like to first touch on is of the Development Services Department, we've got 3 divisions. And so our first division that's up is our Planning and Land Development, which also includes the administration, which is myself and Rosie, as well as the executive assistant. Some of our major initiatives that we'll be working on this coming fiscal year is assisting with the future land use planning and specific plan for the mall site, adoption of the residential and mixed use objective design standards that was approved last week, as well as update to the university neighborhood specific plan. Once the park gets, that process gets finalized, we anticipate rolling into the update of that neighborhood plan. We also have in the budget some zoning code cleanup and modernization. There's a number of internal inconsistencies. We still have a lot of the old language from 1973 when the code was initially adopted. Not that it's bad, but there's just some modernization of terms and things. We aren't necessarily looking at wholesale policy changes, but more of just modernizing and cleaning up some items, as well as some cleanup of the general plan. In addition, we've have moved the Cultural Resource and Preservation Committee from the building division where it previously lived into this division. And we're in the process now going through and creating a work plan with that committee. So we have another meeting with them on Friday morning. So we're going through a similar process that you went through with your goal setting session. So we've adopted that process with this committee. One of the items related to that is what we think would be beneficial is obtaining the certified local government designation through the state. Once a municipality receives that designation, it's through the California Office of Historic Preservation. It's funded through the Department of Interior, and what they do is they provide funding to every state for their historical resources, and then each of those state agencies, if you are a certified local government, you have access to those grant funds. And so we think that's something that, as that work plan gets developed, it's something that we could, a resource that we could tap into to keep those costs from a budgetary perspective down. In addition, continuing to update our webpage, expand our GIS capabilities, really wanting to be able to provide more information for residents if they're looking for a development approval, just making it easier, linking it to properties. And so that's something that we'll continue to work on. Assisting in the finalization or creation of the engineering design standards, as well as working with economic development and housing, implementing a variety of initiatives that were included in our housing element. I think there was some reporting, community meetings, as well as some minor zoning changes, zoning code changes to reflect some of the mandates from the various bills that were passed. And then in addition to that, working on implementing AB 2234, which is the post-entitlement streamline review. And so that's something that we have to have in place. We're already starting it, but needs to be in place by January 1. And so those are some of the major initiatives for that division. Some of the cost containment measures, and you'll see these 3 bullet points spread throughout, is ensuring that there's cross-training, not just within our division, but across divisions. Really changing and focusing our service delivery on this continuous process improvement, truly creating that one-stop shop. And then as we develop these policies, procedures, making sure we have baseline data as far as what our metrics are. And then again, adopting that continuous improvement and then seeing how we can refine through the year. So that through each subsequent year. So that's where we are on planning and land development. What that translates to is a budget of just short of 2.7 million. Some of the major or one-time significant budget increases include those projects that I highlighted. So you'll see that those figures associated with each of them. I won't mention them all again. The only other item I wanted to point out is for supplemental staffing on the land development plan check and support. We have 600,000 that has been spread out through the various through building and planning. So what we've done here is just consolidated it under the planning and land development sections. Our next division is building safety and code compliance. Some of the major initiatives are the Solar Streamline Initiative, continuing to expand virtual inspections, really working with the Permit Center to streamline and simplify online plan review and permitting, consolidating business license inspections for better efficiency, the ability to schedule inspections online and improve the management of inspections to give better lead time to both our homeowners and contractors. A commercial landscape inventory, enforcement and education. This is something that's currently in the works, making sure we have the very latest landscape plans, and then understanding that there has been some changes, but also working with IT and actually developing an app for the inspectors in the field. So they're able to look at older aerials to be able to determine what landscape material has been removed. And so that's something that we want to continue into next year. And then really working on reinstituting a shopping cart retrieval program, and then assisting in the enforcement of the various mandates as it relates to waste hauling, composting, et cetera. The similar, again, the cost containment measures. One thing I will mention under the cross-training across divisions, making sure that everybody is certified, but we're also looking at least our chief, who is currently our building chief, not just our building official, but also our senior inspector, making sure that they have their certifications in plan review. So if we do see a downturn or a change in economy, we're able then to perhaps pull back on the contract services that we have, and then making sure that everyone's trained up so then they can perform that function as the senior inspector. So those are some of the cost containment measures in that division.
And really quick, just to capitalize on what Richard's saying about the cost for the outsourcing for these services, we are currently going through the fee study with Wildan. And what Richard has gone through with his team is looking at it from a different perspective and ensuring that we're making it more easy for customers, and also that we can recoup our expenses that are going to be incurred with these costs.
While Richard's catching his breath, could I quickly ask, I did not know that the shopping cart retrieval program needed to be reinstituted. When did it cease to operate?
I'm going to call on Pedro to see if he can provide some background.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. The program is handled by Public Works. I guess funding was stopped many years ago, around 2015, for the program. So that kind of fell back on staff. We do have a company that has their own contract with some of the stores, but it doesn't help with picking up the shopping carts that are unidentified, full of homeless items, or that are just junk and destroyed in certain areas where they're just not retrievable. So I am in the process of getting a contract put together that should be active in about a week or two. And once we get that service back online, they'll be able to assist us and take that load off of our Public Works Department.
Okay, so continuously Public Works has been picking up empty shopping carts that need to be returned to their retail location.
That is correct.
Okay.
But we also have some changes in the law that would allow Public Works now in our current ordinance that's coming forward that would allow them to take a little bit more action, and then us on the enforcement side to deal with the retailers that don't want to come on board with programs, so that we can have some ways to find them or assess them for the carts that they're not taking responsibility for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got my breath, at least for now. One of the just one-time significant increases, at least on the building side, is the supplemental staffing. That's that building plan check and support. We have 300,000 proposed for next year. And then for code compliance, you'll see there, while it looks like there's a significant decrease in the amount, we did have a transfer of one of the positions into the permit center, as well as a software that we were paying for our business licensing that now has transitioned into IT. So it's not that there was this huge cut. It's just a shift of those funds. One thing I do want to highlight is with respect to animal regulation. This is something we are now, if you recall, when that contract was approved some years ago with Riverside County, we are now at the point where we have 100%. We're at 100% cost recovery. So we are seeing significant increases right now in sheltering costs. And I think that's due in part to the number of animals that are being euthanized is less than prior years. And so they are staying there longer. And so that cost is passed on to us. So we are seeing some high, bills these past couple of months as it relates to that. Last but not least is our permit center. This is something that we have a lot going on right now. Some of the major initiatives include completing all of the process mapping and creating staff guides and procedures, and really updating all applications checklists, making sure that we have all of our everything outlined. So when we do ultimately transition to a new permitting software, we hope that to not have issues that we've seen a lot of other municipalities have, where they don't have those processes mapped, documented. So we want to make sure that we have all of those completed. Also helps for new staff when they start. Looking at streamlining and expanding online submittals through eTrackIt. Currently, we have, I think, 5 applications. So we're looking to really develop and have all applications being able to be submitted online. What we've also done is created a regulatory and licensing component, again, focusing on that one-stop shop. And so that was one of the staff members who helped really implement the short-term rental program with Deckert, has now moved to into the permit center. And so she's really handling short-term rentals, also business licensing, cannabis licensing. And so any of those regulatory type permits and licensing, that way they're all focused in one where we don't have them spread out through the multiple divisions. Looking at further enhancing that land management system and to gain efficiencies and start to standardize some of that work. Again, we talked about creating or having the ability to do schedule online inspections. And again, expanding those GIS capabilities with links to permitting. For cost containment measures, they're the same. One thing that we're also doing with what we want to get to, at least in the next year, towards the end, at least quarter 3 or 4 of next year, is really starting to train some of the permit techs in doing some small plan review, swimming pools, for example. And so once we have those processes outlined, documented, as well as those procedures, if there's kind of that what we'll call that standard work, as long as everything fits within inside of that box, empower them with the ability to make those to do those reviews and approve them without having to route a number of things to planning staff if they're straightforward, simple reviews. And that equates to just under 600,000 for the permit center. Really no major additional expenses here. We did include some funds for professional services for the consultant to continue to assist in helping us map those processes. I think that was it.
Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you for the progress on online scheduling of inspections and virtual inspections. I really appreciate the responsiveness to our users. Veronica, do we just have Public Works left?
That's it.
Let's take a 10-minute cookie break. Okay, let's reassemble.
So we will jump right into Public Works and hand it over to Martine Alvarez.
I'll wait for. Good afternoon again. We're going to go through our Public Works budgets, different divisions. Randy Chavez will be assisting me, with some of the other facilities and parks divisions. But to start off, we have the administration budget. We have some key initiatives that we're going to continue to move forward. We have some new software called Cartograph. This is our asset management tool. We've been going through significant trainings over the last several months. And we will look forward to implementing the program throughout all of our divisions for next fiscal year. This Cartograph software will assess all of our assets throughout the cities in different types of areas. We will integrate it with Rock Solid, which is basically our work order system of anything that is needed to be repaired or addressed throughout the community. We're also going to be integrating that software with our GIS system. Other initiatives include just continuing to improve our budget controls and cost management for all of our different areas and projects. We will continue to increase our collaboration between divisions and departments. And also a key directive will be for us to standardize our procedures for payments, processing, working with the finance department, and processes when it relates to project management. And of course, we'll continue to support our new capital programs department. Just some of the cost containment measures we're going to continue to address and pay attention to deferred maintenance to make sure that we're not incurring longer term costs that could be associated with not addressing current needs. We're going to be strategic in our investments in training our staff in project management. We're going to try to use all of our tools, resources, and some of our consultants that we currently have hired. This is a look at the administration budget, starting with just the Public Works admin row or column. You'll see there's a significant decrease there from 2.9 to 1.7. That is as relates to what was mentioned earlier. The capital programs department has been removed from this budget, and now it's a standalone department. Under the Public Works fleet, we have a minor increase there, mainly associated with fuel cost increases, and just repair and maintenance of our fleet as well has gone up. On the Public Works courtyard, you'll see an increase as well. We're seeing increases contemplated or projected for utilities, repair and maintenance, and also some one-time improvements to the corporation yard. Under the NPDES stormwater permit, there has been an increase there from 65 to 85. That's just a standard cost allocation that we're responsible for. I'm going to turn this over to Randy Chavez, and he'll walk us through facilities and parks.
Good afternoon. So the major initiatives for next fiscal year, we're developing a building inventory and assessment management plan. This will be for all city-owned buildings and our parks. And the purpose of this plan is to provide a preventative maintenance plan, but also give us a cost analysis for those repairs. We're going to continue working at the Parkview Office Complex with Mark's Architect. We are, just a reminder, they're doing design services out there and engineering needs as well for ADA and other projects that need to be to bring the building up to speed. We're also working on new roofs at the Artist Center and the City Hall here at the council chambers, but we're actually going to move that one up this fiscal year because the need it's great and we need to get on that quickly. Fencing at several of our facilities will also be installed. And we're also going to focus on health and safety issues at our fire stations. There's an ongoing assessment right now for 33 and 71, but we still want to address the immediate needs. So we don't want to leave those behind. Also working on painting in several of our facilities, and we're also working on improving our safety at our facilities as well. Cost containment measures were accomplished by bundling multi-contracts together. This way, we're able to have several contractors on long-term, and we're able to issue task orders. And if a contractor is not available to complete the project or begin the project, we're able to go to another vendor. So we're able to streamline work, but also get a fair and competitive price as well. And we're also working on, when performing the work, we're also improving energy efficiency and keeping that in mind, such as adding LED lights and other water saving measures. If we go to the budget. So the major increases for facilities was we added a new employee, we added a project manager. Also, the utility rates have gone up, SCE and the CVWD, but also prevailing wage have gone up across the board with a lot of our vendors. So they're all asking for increases to cover those rates. Next slide. And I'm going to go pretty quickly because we have a pretty aggressive list for next fiscal year, and feel free to stop me if I need to slow down. So we're continuing to work on the aquatic center. We, like Todd mentioned, there's a lot of deferred maintenance out there. We started the locker rooms this year, but we're going to work on shade structures, more play equipment that the PDAC folks requested, installing a generator, also painting the exterior of the facility. We're also going to add a shower area as well. We're also working in the, I'm sorry, my eyes are failing me here. We're going to finalize construction plans for the community park in the north of Palm Desert. This is for the one next to the JHA development. We're also working on JPIA safety issues that they notified us that we need to repair, such as playgrounds. We're going to continue working on our sports courts. I know there was a lot of talk about pickleball, so we want to address those concerns as well next fiscal year. We're working to make the Palma Village improvements. That's an ongoing project, and we hope to get that completed next fiscal year. We're also working on continue working on our smart irrigation controllers, are refreshing our media and landscaping, and installing LED lighting at our facilities as practical. And we're installing the restroom at Homie Adams Park, and we're also going to go back and revisit some of our community garden planter boxes. They're starting to fail, specifically at the Guadalupe Garden, and we are intending to replace those. So again, for cost containment measures, we bundled several projects together, long-term 5-year contracts for playground and sports courts repairs. And this is to achieve an economy of scale with these contracts. And we're also awarding to multiple vendors where possible. That way, we're not just awarding to one vendor. So that'll be a new trend that we'll be seeing going forward. So our budget increase, if we see the Civic Center citywide park improvements, that decreased slightly, but our Civic Center park did increase, and this was due to again just salaries, rate increases for utilities. We also had our Arbor Day event this past week, so we added funds for next fiscal year to continue that. And also our vendors, several of our maintenance vendors, they requested a CPI increase because of prevailing wage rates. Next slide. And we get to the aquatic center. And we see that there's a huge rate increase due to the payroll that we've been discussing over the past several meetings, and also the deferred maintenance and repairs that are needed to be done at the Aquatic Center. We started this fiscal year. We're going to continue that next fiscal year as well. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know it's a lot of information, but if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take some now before we proceed.
Quick question. You were talking about in the community gardens and specifically the ones at Guadalupe, and that the planter boxes are failing. Is that the same material that we use? It was recycled from concrete and bottles and.
Yes.
Okay, I have concerns about that, and I know it's not the first time I've mentioned it not to you, but others have heard me. It's the same material that we used for the trash cans, the recycling bins, and the garbage bins, trash bins, and benches on El Paseo. It's all failing. They all have significant cracks in it. And I think we need to do something about it. And certainly I'm sure that they have some level of responsibility with the material they provided and the design of all of those structures. So I don't know where we go, but I think we need to take a look at it.
Yes. To answer your question, we were waiting on the Lupine project to see if that was going to have legs and take off. The plan was to match their site furnishings to the rest of El Paseo. However, since that's still up for discussion and these furnishings need to be replaced quickly, one of the things that we want to do is work with our Vanessa and maybe come up with some design options that the merchants would approve and maybe go about it independently. So I agree that they need to be replaced. We have reached out to the manufacturer. He's MIA. I'm not sure if he's still in business. So at this point, we're just going with concrete at the garden boxes on Guadalupe.
My question pertains to the increased rates in utilities. That's something that's inevitable. Is there something that is padded incrementally to forecast additional rates? We've seen the trend. We know it's getting worse. So that's my first question.
With that, I'll bring up our Bertha Gonzalez. I know she works a lot with our utilities, and I know she does her best to forecast, but she could weigh in on it a little bit more.
He just wanted to make sure you didn't sit there all that time without
just wanted to give me my time.
without your moment.
Correct. I appreciate that. Yeah, we do. We try to forecast based on history, and then we also try to increase it by 5-10% depending on information that we get from all the utility companies. So usually they'll send us some kind of tier rate or forecasting for the next 5 years. So that's what we try to implement on the budget.
Thank you. That is
Thank you.
excellent. And my second question is partially the same as Councilmember Harnick. Those the concrete material, it has been eroding and it will continue to get worse. There was a conversation that I had with, and I believe you were there with West Coast Arborist about how there is the potential to add new benches with entirely composted material and wood that's reproduced or the excess wood that would make it durable and sustainable. Is that something that could be explored in the future? Is that a similar cost? Any thoughts?
Yeah, and that's something that, based on our conversation, I did speak with West Coast. I asked them to give me a menu of what they do offer. And once we have that, that's something that we could certainly bring back up to council or even the Merchants Association there to see if they'd be interested.
Thank you.
There are other further questions. I believe I have the streets. So the streets, Our initiatives for next fiscal year is really to, like Martine mentioned, make improvements at the corporation yard. It's outdated. We want to make improvements to the break room, add LED lights, paint. It's an old paint palette out there, so we really want to make that enjoyable for the team. Also, we want to give them the tools needed to work properly. So we are requesting some purchases of some equipment, graffiti truck, concrete truck, a mini excavator. And we're also going to develop an RFP to help augment the street staff. They seem to get a little behind because all the sandstorms and whatnot, and other projects get put on the back burner. So we're hoping to put a concrete removal and replacement project, but that project will not only be for Public Works, it will also be with capital projects with Jess and his team, Desert Willow, and our housing authority. So this is a way where we're going to bundle this project to encompass several departments. The cost containment measures, we installed fencing all throughout the north section of the city that has helped. And now we are also using recycled palm mulch to help mitigate the sand. And we are also waiting on an electric street sweeper that will be here in October to help with the narrow areas such as the CV Link bike. Right now, the crews are doing everything by hand. So this way it'll speed things up. So we go to the budget. There is our increases, graffiti, paint sprayer, that was an increase, salaries, supplies and materials, extra street sweeping. We're actually still tackling that as we speak. Contractual service increase, or vendors again for prevailing wage purposes are requesting increases. And also the $100,000, that's part of this new program we're implementing, the concrete removal and replacement program. And I'll turn this over to Martine.
Again, this is the last of our divisions, which consist of traffic. Traffic team consists of 4 staff members. Major initiatives for fiscal year 23-24. Like I mentioned before, we're going to continue to implement our neighborhood traffic management program throughout various neighborhoods in the city. We're going to be continue to coordinate with CVAG as we are looking into phase 2 of the CV Sync. That is the coordination of all signals throughout the city with video detection systems and new software so that we can manage electronically and virtually some of these adjustments that we have for our signals throughout the city. Phase 1 has been completed, and we're currently in a training mode with CVAG before it gets officially turned over to city staff. And that project consists of all signals on Highway 111 and all signals on Washington Street. Under cost containment measures, again, we're going to be looking and have purchased equipment to have on staff, for staff to have available in case a cabinet gets damaged or something goes wrong. Having this equipment and materials on board helps with reducing costs for cost increases in the future, and also helps us implement projects a lot faster with not having to wait for lead times for new materials. And again, we're going to be working with our software, our Cartograph, to implement the asset management of all of our traffic systems and equipment so that we have everything documented and ready to replace when needed. Next slide. Under the budget, not a big increase overall, but we have some increase in costs in material and supplies. We have some utility costs that have, of course, gone up as well. And also, we're going to be buying some equipment to help us better manage our signals, like a traffic equipment locators. That's for wiring locators and fiber optic cable testing equipment. So that is, in general, the overview for traffic, and happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any.
That concludes our budget presentation. And if there aren't any other questions, I personally would just like to thank the staff for all their hard work in putting this together and helping me get these numbers out. And a personal extra thank you to our Zen master in the finance department, Liberty Irvin, who helped me remain calm throughout this whole process.
Well, kudos to you and your team and to the whole staff. I think you've really further refined a system. It's been evolving these last couple of years to be as efficient as possible. Very digestible for us, lots of important information communicated in short order. So thank you. We appreciate all of that efficiency.
I echo that our staff makes this whole city just beautiful and run smoothly. So that is all the gratitude to you and every person that contributed to the data. I know data collection is immensely burdensome, but it gets us to the state where we are now. And with this, we'll be able to look at what are the crucial emergency needs, what are the wish lists, and how to navigate everything in between. And thank you for providing the ordinance information very, very quickly. That helps frame things. So thanks again, my deepest gratitude.
Thank you, everybody. Mayor? Bye.